So here's the table of content. The first one I will talking about the cybersecurity issues in Indonesia, and then move on post-Copenhagen School approach, and then post-Copenhagen School cybersecurity in Indonesia, and then this leads to my two arguments, the overlapping regulations and actors in Indonesia cybersecurity, and the last one, Indonesia cybersecurity and human rights discourse. So what happened actually the cybersecurity conditions in Indonesia? We actually experiencing massive cyber attacks. In 2024, we have last year we have 2.5 billion cyber attacks, and which also it's also high. In 2021, we have almost 1.6 billion cyber attacks. This is a really prevalent attacks experiencing by Indonesia. We also have huge number of internet users. Like we have like 80% internet penetrations, and we have 280 million populations. Yeah, one of the biggest country in Southeast Asia. And then we also lack of cybersecurity awareness within the public, the government, and then the business. But all three of them are not really aware about what kind of cybersecurity will look like, what kind of cyber threats that they will experiencing in daily life. And then we also have a limited financial and human resources. In our country, cybersecurity is still not being taken into consideration, even though we already have experienced massive cyber attacks. And then the rapid of the technological advancement, the rise of Internet of Things, the AI, even make more the cyber attacks more sophisticated than before, and we just needs to be addressed of, but it's still not there. And the last one, we really lack of coordination between institutions, as we know that the cyber attacks is expanding across our nation, expanding across our institution, but our institutions still not have this kind of sense of urgency, sense of the willingness to tackle this problem altogether. And I'm using this approach to explain what happened on Indonesia cybersecurity posture by using on post-Copenhagen School approach. The post-Copenhagen School approach is basically coming from Copenhagen School. The main difference between Copenhagen School and post-Copenhagen School, basically, the first one, Copenhagen School, focusing on the elite approach, elite speech, and it's kind of a top-down approach. And the audience in Copenhagen School position as a being a passive rather than being an active agent influencing policymakers' behavior. And while post-Copenhagen School, it's kind of looking at more broader picture, looking the interactions between the audience and then the securitizing actor, which is the government. They both influencing each other, and they also look at the sociological and political context in where securitization taking place. And this is three considerations of securitizing move. The first one, security as a discourse, influence the securitizing actors. It means that it hopes because of the cyber threat, the securitizing actors still start to think that cyber threat is an important thing that needs to be addressed on. They still start to think that this is a really threat. And then the next step is the policymakers employ any policy addressing a threat. It means that the securitizing move makes the policymakers trying to do something to fix, to solve the threat. And then the last one, the context, as a significant factor in the securitization framework. So the context is really important in examining in the post-Copenhagen School approach within the cybersecurity in Indonesia. So therefore, what is cybersecuritization? Cybersecuritization is the report of the discursive constructions of cyber threats and identify tensions between political claims and the objective conditions to which they refer on as a threat to legitimize an act or policy to address it. So here it comes the application on post-Copenhagen School cybersecuritization in Indonesia. So how the three securitizing moves applied in context of Indonesia? The first one, the process of securitization, the cybersecurity discourse, and political influence. I'm using this to apply in Indonesia regulations, law, and policies on cybersecurity. And then the next step, on the policymaker employ any measure necessary in addressing potential threats. I'm using this approach to elaborate more on the role of the securitizing actors and their role in securitizing the cyber. These 2 points lead me to provide one argument. They're like overlapping regulation and actors in Indonesia cyber securitization from these 2 point of view. And then the last one of the contexts of the securitization framework in this cybersecurity in Indonesia, I'm applying it between the interactions between securitizing actor and the audience. These interactions, I try to apply it in Indonesia cyber securitization and human rights discourse. So how the overlapping regulation and actors in Indonesia happening in Indonesia cyber securitization? During my 2 research, I found there are like 4 securitizing actors in Indonesia. Although many ministry on there, but I found these 4. The first one, BSSN, is National Cybersecurity Agency, and then the second one, Komdigi and Dijen Aptika, is the Ministry of Digitalization, and then Titipit Cyber is the police, and then the Satsibat is TNI is the military. So these 4 actors is basically trying to securitize the cyber in Indonesia. Where is the overlapping part lies? So the BSSN one, this is from their job description on their website. They try to formulate, implement, prepare norms, standard technical guidance, and administrative support in cybersecurity and cryptography. While it's kind of similar in Komdigi and Dijen Aptika, they try to develop and implement policies in digital infrastructures, government technology, personal data protection, and maintain public communication, which is it's still a blurry line between BSSN and Komdigi. And then while the police try to maintain the cybersecurity and enforce cybercrime laws, handling cybercrime, both computer crime and computer-related crime. And while the military, the TNI, builds a coordinate operationalization of cyber crisis management recovery from the incident in government sector and enhance capacity in cybersecurity incident response. So not only they are still blurry in how they are handling what type of cyber threat, what type of cyber attack that they want to tackle, it is also, the overlapping also reflected on the regulations. It's quite concerning and confusing. I also confused during my 2 years of my PhD. So the first presidential regulation number 47 of 2023, and then there's like Information and Transaction Electronic Act UU ITE, and then Data Privacy Protection Act, and then the last one, Presidential Regulation number 82 of 2022. These 4 regulations is kind of overlapping as well with one of another. The first one, the Presidential Regulation number 47, it said that BSSN serve as the lead agency to protect the cyber. And while the other 3 regulations say Komdigi become the lead coordinator in protecting the digital infrastructure. So when the terms is kind of different, and there is no detailed explanation in the Presidential Regulation number 47 and the other 3 regulations regarding what type of cyber attack, what type of cyber threat that they want to they want to tackle to. There is unclear distribution of work from this regulation, and the case is really prevalent because of this confusion. In last year, we have a massive ransomware attack by Lockbit 3.0. The ransomware attack on the national data center, and it disrupted service across 210 government institutions, and both of them, BSSN and Komdigi, not taking any responsibility because they are confused. BSSN lead from the regulation. BSSN said that they will try to lead the cybersecurity, but also Komdigi from the regulations say that it's also their responsibility to protect the critical infrastructure. But when the case happened, the attack happened, both of them not taking responsibility. So the Overlapping Speech Act also very prevalent in these 4 institutions, for securitizing actors. They 4 of them help cybersecurity awareness and socialization program. The securitizing actors would like to securitize this issue even more to the public, portray a sense of threat that the cybersecurity should be put into a national agenda, However, the cybersecurity awareness campaign held in sporadic and different way without any measurable result that they want to achieve. And of course, it will be difficult to measure its effectiveness. The argument, the Speech Act regulations and actors involved are overlapping and lack clear alignment. This results in vague responsibility and broad scopes of authority, making it difficult to determine who is accountable for what. Although the four securitizing actors have conducted cybersecurity awareness program, the ultimate objective of this initiative remains unclear. There are no clearly defined targets or measurable outcomes associated with this securitization move. And the lack of clarity creates confusion among the audience, which in turn undermine the effectiveness of the cybersecuritization efforts by the four securitizing actors. So the last point that I would like to bring is Indonesian cybersecuritization and human rights discourse. I'm putting the cybersecuritization in the human rights aspects. I present two prevalent cases. The first one is regarding the regulation and act, Information and Transaction Electronic Act, or being called UU ITE, in 2008 and being revised in 2024. This regulation actually trying to protect the cyberspace to be kind of a safe environment, trying to protect the society from the hate speech, hoax, scam, and many false rumors. However, in the application, this UU ITE being used to limit freedom of expression, and of course, we also have a decline in democracy because of this law. The criminalization also really prevalent by the government using this law. There's 530 criminalization case of freedom of expression. The last part is they also try to suppress the opposition to speak up, because on the side they try to protect the citizen, but on the other side they also abuse this law because there is no clear cut on what kind of things that they want to be executed and so on. And the last one is Indonesian National Military Act UU TNI, which just formalized in March 2025. So this is also kind of problematic law because military operation in cyber still not defined well within this law. And of course, UU TNI will overlap with other regulations such as UU ITE and Draft Bill of Cybersecurity and Resilience Bill. And there will be a conflict of interest because this law try to put the military into the civil space in terms of cybersecurity. So there will be a conflict of interest between the civil interest and the military interest in terms of protecting the cyber. To conclude, Indonesia cybersecuritization appears to be unconsolidated, questioning further who is securitizing what aspects and towards what kind of audience that they would like to provide the securitization moves to. BSSN, Komdigi, police, and TNI know how to securitize the cyber by bringing the cybersecurity discourse into the awareness agenda towards the public. However, it is still in a sporadic way, which is difficult to measure its effectiveness. And then the last one, the securitization effort through law and regulations, both from UU ITE and UU TNI, often limit people's human rights. Although the involvement of the army shows the higher level of securitization moves, however, the government using this law to limit people's freedom of expression and suppressing opposition under pretext to secure the cyber. Thank you, that's it all for me.